up, AKAPADers? Welcome back to the channel. We're talking to Cringe Father, Todd McFarlane today. The fall of Todd McFarlane. Respectfully, his artwork. What the hell happened? We got some proof. Let's talk about it. Alright, AKAPADers, Peter A. DeLuca here, AKAPAD69, and say it with me, known through Philadelphia, PA, Europe, and the vast multiverse as your eclectic one. Guys, third Todd McFarlane video in a row. This is the one, I completely forgot that I bought this. This is the adult color. Why is it called adult coloring book? You just call it a coloring book. Coloring book Spawn. Eric Larson artwork on the cover too. If I was Todd, right here, like Todd McFarlane, made by Image Comics, right? If I was Todd and I saw this and it wasn't my artwork, I would have hit the roof. Why is Eric Larson's black and white on the cover of this? Guys, that's not the point. And I'm not a Eric Larson hater. I'm a Eric Larson pornographer hater. So, the rise and fall of Todd McFarlane's artwork. 2 videos ago, we discussed the fall of McFarlane Toys, where he is essentially a shill for his own company. Todd McFarlane Toys, no imagination, nothing anymore. They're just like, you know, rubber stamping out these DC direct action figures or DC multiverse figures, and there's little imagination, there's little nuance, there's little design work added to them. Now, given there's fantastic technical elements to a lot of those action figures, but nothing really compares to what they were doing, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Guys, there's a reason why he had to sell and unload the company. If the other stuff was doing well, that he was just kept on doing it. Whatever. I know he's kind of blamed the 08, 09 recession on some of the sales drops, and, you know, that probably made him vulnerable for a little bit of a buyout. With all of that said, what we're here to discuss his artwork. For me, Todd McFarlane shifted from going practical to digital, and that shift isn't exactly congruent with his previous work. I believe his digital artwork it's just cluttered, it's muddy. The line works don't have roundness. They don't really connect. And even like his Todd McFarlane isms, the dots, the streaks, and all these other things, they a little bit too much, a little bit too vast. I believe because he's working digitally, he has lost a little bit of his eye. I wholeheartedly believe he still has his eye, and we have to also keep in mind that Image United, the greatest collaboration in comic book history, sputtered out when Todd McFarlane went all digital, and he couldn't even work with the pages on the practical level. He couldn't pick up the crow quill anymore, and he's the one that held up and killed that project. It wasn't Rob Liefeld, Eric Larson, Mark Silvestri, or none of the other guys, or Wells Portacio. Guys, this is a gold mine if you want to compare Todd McFarlane digital and Todd McFarlane practical, the golden age when he truly was the Todd father, and then he transitions into, you guys know it, say it with me, the Cringe Father. Cringe Father is digital, Todd. Anyway, guys, cheap book, go buy it, go check it out, and the comparisons, in my opinion, are 1-to-1. Okay, so we're dealing with same size, same resolutions, and it's, you know, it's laid out nicely. So let's sit down. Let me show you some of the evidence. Let me show you some of the proof. Let me show you the AKAPAD Army's point of view on this topic. Alright, AKAPADers, confession. A whole day has gone by since I filmed both of those intros. The reason being is I don't know what happened. Like I said, guys, I'm still dealing with a little bit of an illness. I just find myself, as we will call, sleeping like a normal person. So let's just get into this. I know I made comments about the Todd McFarlane inked Eric Larson piece. whatever. You know, he probably had no control over what ended up on the cover here. But even when we get into the intro page, and look, guys, I will be pointing out some of the things with an actual Crow Quill pen. This is the exact pen size that Todd McFarlane uses. But you can see, and this is when it comes to developing your eye, what's digital and what's practical. Can you identify what's digital and what's practical just off of this without knowing the time frame or when some of these images were produced? Because, you know, that's a good indicator. Practical, digital. And right off the bat, we do see a little bit of a disconnect. So, one of my major points is that when Todd McFarlane is practical, when we deal with a reduction of the art, the line work, the detail, and just like the overall presence of the artwork, it becomes something else. It becomes magical. And we don't get that when he works digital because there's no reduction. With digital, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, and you essentially confuse your own eye. Again, here's another good, time-based digital piece, meaning he's not putting a lot of detail. He's giving us a extreme light, excuse me, and he's just trying to, again, complete the page, move on to the next. Again, more examples of practical Todd McFarlane. Now we get into him making Eric Larson, him being digital. We're just going to move on from that piece. But here we go. We get this Walking Dead interpretation, recreation, whatever you want to call it. And you see when he's digital and you're zoomed in, right? Like kind of like you're working on, the human eye puts together the detail far different than what digital allows a human eye to reveal. Meaning, when you're working on this, you zoom in that close. But when you're using the human eye, like this is like 1-to-1. But you see the muddiness and you see how the collection of blacks doesn't quite frame anything and it just gets muddy and confusing. Like even here, it's hard to tell that we're in a windowsill, we're in a window pane. It's hard to even determine what's happening inside some of these shards of glass. The detail here for the bricks, it's the lines just don't connect, and it's hard to classify it, but the lines just don't pop. They don't make a lot of sense. Even here, like the thick to thin here would be so different with a Crow Quill. And then, bang, not a 1-to-1 example, but we have another example of practical. And you kind of see where the blacks, though, they run to every single building perfectly, and even his spots of white to separate things, to show off some of the detail. Perfect. Now, he could have been modeling this after another comic book panel, another artist. Not saying he copied it, but he could just be modeling a little bit of the technique. But even here, you can kind of see the strokes of the Crow Quill and these nice little chunky spots here. It just works. It works in a way that fascinates the eye. And again, too, we go back to digital. Now, Danny Mickey is the guy that really pioneered, and Todd did this very well too when he was inking Greg Capullo. The texture for the armaments here, for the leg gauntlet, we'll say, or even the arm gauntlet, it was so much more detailed and defined, and it looked rounded at one time. This is a great example of where digital, you just kind of like muddy the hell out of it. And yeah, it gets frustrating, it gets confusing. But let's just see, like, again, practical, digital. Practical, practical, practical. Now this is a blown up panel. This panel is probably blown up x2. So some of this we have to keep in mind. But here we go. We get digital, and the page doesn't quite pop. The page isn't quite there. There's a reliant on the white stroke. And usually back in the day, to do the white stroke, you would have to ink around the line itself. Way more complicated, way more time consuming. But you see kind of where, again, like the eye lies to Todd McFarlane. His own eye lies to him. His digital screen lies to him, because we know there should be some blacks here, here, here. You have to get a little bit more defined blacks here and here to draw us into the center. Now, we also have this guy. And I'm not sure, again, like even it's a close-up of, I mean, like right here, like we can use crypt, right? It's a close-up of a face, but what's the focal point? Like the focal point here should be very easy. It should be like this and this, and we should get more of a defined glow from his eyes. Early practical, I believe this is Spawn 4. But you see where, because it takes time to dip the pen, and you're taking extra time to think about that line. When you're digital, your hand works as well and as fast as your mind does. And this is actually, it takes away from the final product. It makes the final product seem muddy and confusing. I don't think digital works with the mind of Todd McFarlane. I believe Todd McFarlane needs a little bit of a break to dip to determine those next couple strokes. Again, digital, confusing, just confusing. It's hard to even see the battlefield here. It's hard to see that there's like dead bodies maybe, or corpses. Like here too, like this should all be shadowed. All down here, shadowed, shadow in that eye. It goes on and on. And maybe, like I said, you guys are going to decide this. Let me know in the comments. Here's a great example. Let's just get into like a good. Did we have a good shot of the Violator? We can just go to the Violator cover right here. Which one would you rather have? Again, he's blacking some of this out to do two things. Number one, it saves time, but what it also does, it draws our eye. It draws our focus. You know, like some of these like pimples and bumps here, the texture for the Violator skin, it could be a little bit more curved, like kind of because we're wrapping around the skull. But at the same time, you know, we get the total impression, and we leave a lot for the colorist to play with. The shadow here, and the lines breaking it up. It's perfection. It's perfection on the terms of illustration. Not that it's a perfect image, but here, the reliant on the white ink going over the black, and it's not ink. You know, it's the white brush. It's the white selector. He's selecting white and he's going in here. It confuses it, and it's hard to see that the mouth is even open here. You know, I think here too, like he tried to pull some of the shadows this way to kind of, again, we see like the torso, we see the legs coming from the crotch area. It's where things have to look rounded. Again too, like old Todd, like simple compared to the digital, and the digital is too much for the eye. I'm not saying that the detail's too much. He's blocking out the same amount of debris that he normally does. And I do believe like that, and this piece here is just like, this is just I don't know, guys. This is tough to look at. It's no analysis for this one. It just doesn't work. It doesn't fly. Not there. This is a recreation of Amazing Spider-Man issue, what, 338, right? 238. I forget, 338 or 378, 328. Oh, I forget it. First cover appearance of Venom, but we have Tremor, we have Spawn. This is his best digital piece at all, but I do feel like, again, here too, like these some of these lines here just don't look natural around his second hand. I think whatever he did around the debris here just works very well. It's hard to see his second hand. It's the black hand going with the black shadowed second leg of, or the lean, like, you know, we have the lean leg and we have the second leg here from Tremor. It's confusing. This is very confusing here. I believe if the cape here was digital, it would just have more flip, more flow, because we're using the human hand. And here, like, if you guys want to go back to that, I think that Violator example is great. Like, look at the difference. Look how easily one's communicated and one's not. Like I said, no one really discusses how digital changes the eye. Again, practical. Saving time, puts in that gray. But when it's colored and reduced, it works. It works so well. More digital. This could have been a colored effect. I'm not familiar with this cover. But guys, this, if you really want to start developing your eye and determine, again, like this is a great example. One's digital, one's practical. Digital, practical. And to, again, like, these look the same, very similar. But when we drill into the bits of it, you know, we kind of see, again, like, easy to determine what this is, easy to see the separation, great reduced, easy to color. But here, you know, like, again, it gets muddy. The gauntlet with the bane around the bicep. Like here too, like this should be all shaded. Some of these lines would have to go. Digital here. This is really just, again, it looks muddy. Like even the back of his hair, he would never have done this at one time. He would never have done that. This too. Like he would, when he was inking Capullo, it's almost like they would never fill in blacks and everything was strokes, but this would be like just one line stroke and it would work. This here is just like scribbling. So you can kind of see it. This is, it's a $10 book, everyone. I'd recommend it to develop and uncover the difference between practical and digital and why you kind of have to exist in the realm of two. And always remember, everything we know that works happens practical, right? Everything we know that works started practical. Digital should attempt to recreate what we know works practically and not the opposite. It doesn't rewrite what works. It has to replicate what works. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. Alright, AKAPADers, I wanted to come to you with all of this from the drawing table, just to,